Hey everybody, we're talking about the U.S. Supreme Court bail priests. I've been to the Supreme Court 4 times. Every time their clerk, Eric Fossum, assaulted me with their D.C. rules. Every time I told them they have no right to turn the case away and they have no right to tax me. Every time they accepted the case was docketed, there was no excise tax. I know people whose cases were refused and they did not even get docketed. Every time the U.S. Department of so-called Justice has waived their right to respond, every time the case was subsequently dismissed. Every time the only thing I got from the clerk was a letter saying it was dismissed. Nothing from one of the bail priests. There's a guy by the name of Mark Passio who's got a YouTube channel called What on Earth is Happening. He's a former Satanist priest. He's got some natural law videos. Very intelligent guy. He talks about the pillars of Satanism in relation to natural law. And one of the pillars of Satanism is moral relativism. There's no absolute right or wrong. Truth is relative. Gee, that sounds like one of these court cases. We just make up what's right or wrong. That sounds like one of these court cases. What's right or wrong is what we decide today, and tomorrow it'll be something else. Gee, that sounds like a court case. He says, according to Passio, 2/3 of the people are practicing Satanists. And I think he's being generous. I think it's more like about 90%, with all these 501c3 tax-exempt organizations out there that are masquerading as churches. I think it's more like about 90%. Passio also talks about some of the other pillars of Satanism: survival, the highest law of Satanism; social Darwinism, certain classes of society think they are most fit to rule; postulates the survival of the most socially ruthless; ultimate responsibility is self-preservation; and eugenics, where the elite get to determine who lives or dies. Other pillars of Satanism are order followers. They're responsible for all of the atrocities in history, and I think he's 100% correct. They just follow orders without thinking about whether it's a lawful order or not. They're willing slaves. This is his YouTube channel, What on Earth is Happening. Order followers, the World War II war crimes tribunals, all the Nazis claimed they were just following orders. Gee, that sounds like they were Satanists. They either suffered death by hanging or spent the rest of their life in jail. Some of them are still hunted to this day. The Vietnam War, the My Lai massacre, they were convicted of murder. Today, order followers are everywhere. Things you see every day using the satanic philosophy of moral relativism are false flag operations. The end justifies the means. Agent provocateurs. The end justifies the means. Entrapment. The end justifies the means. If you think about it, entrapment is just an agent provocateur that got caught. And all court cases are kangaroo courts unless it's a common law court, which is Satanism. Anyone wearing a military uniform is an agent of the Roman Cult. This is Article 10 of the Concordat of 1933 that Hitler signed with the Roman Cult. The wearing of clerical dress or religious habit on the part of layfolk is liable to the same penalty on the part of the state as the misuse of a military uniform. Almost all so-called governments are bankrupt and owned and operated by the Roman Cult. At common law, a sheriff would have a star only and a judge would wear a business suit. At common law, there is no uniform. PIG is an acronym, stands for persons in government who intend to perjure their oath. Could also be called a wordism, since it's also used as a word. This is Rule 45 of the U.S. Supreme Court rules. All process of this court issues in the name of the President of the United States. And what that's telling me is there's no separation of powers, okay? There's no judicial as being separate from the executive, okay? It's all one. And there's the bail priests, okay? They're even wearing their bail priest uniforms. They all have their bail priest uniforms on, and so that's what a bail priest uniform looks like, everybody. Those are bail priests, and that's what you see in these kangaroo courts nowadays. They're all a bunch of Baal priests. This is a picture of Congress, and you see where the arrows are? They're pointing at some faces, okay? This is Roman law. This is under Roman law. Faces is the word is Latin, meaning bundle, a bundle of wood, a wooden rod, sometimes including an axe with a blade emerging. The facies had its origin in the Etruscan civilization, which was passed on to ancient Rome, where it symbolized a magistrate's power and jurisdiction. Okay, the images survived in the modern world as a representation of magisterial and collective power. The facies frequently occurs as a charge in heraldry. It is presented on an older design of the Mercury dime. Okay, the old Mercury dimes all had faces on them, and behind the podium of the U.S. House of Representatives. And it is used as a symbol of the number of Italian. Well, I don't know about that, but it's the origin of the name is the National Fascist Party in Italy. Okay, so that's where fascism comes from. Okay, and that's what we have right here. Is these are a bunch of fascists. Okay, that's what this is these are fascists. This is Roman law. It goes on. The symbol of the facies suggested strength from unity. A single rod is easily broken, while a bundle is difficult to break. The symbolism, the axe represents the power over life or death through the death penalty. In the Republican Rome, the fasci was symbolized power and authority in ancient Rome, beginning in the early Roman kingdom, continuing through Republican and imperial periods. And it goes on, according to the highest magistrate, the dictator was entitled to 24 lictors or faces, the consul to 12. Okay, so anyways, the magistrate is a dictator. Okay, the axe indicated the magistrate's judicial powers, including capital punishment. During times of emergency, however, the Roman Republic might use a dictator to lead for a limited period, who was only the magistrate for the granted who's the only magistrate to be granted capital punishment authority within the pomerium. Okay, so a fasces is an indication of dictatorship. Okay, fasces comes from Rome and Roman law. Fasces represent the penal power, the plenary power. Fasces represent dictatorship by magistrate. A magistrate, this is Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition, is the highest ranking official in the government, such a king in a monarchy, the president in a republic, the governor in a state. It's also termed a chief magistrate or first magistrate. Some other definitions of a magistrate is a local official who possesses whatever power is specified in the appointment or statutory grant of authority. A judicial officer with strictly limited jurisdiction and authority, often in the local level and often restricted to criminal cases. So a magistrate's a dictator. This is actually taken from Article 3, Section 1 of the 1836 Constitution for the Republic of Texas. They talk about a magistrate there. The executive authority of this government shall be vested in a chief magistrate, who shall be styled the President of the Republic of Texas. So Obama is a magistrate. That's exactly what that is. So then, this is Downs versus Bidwell, eliminating then from the opinions of this court all necessary expressions unnecessary to the disposition of the particular case, and gleaning therefrom the exact point decided in each of the following propositions may be considered as established: that the District of Columbia and the territories are not state within the judicial cause of the Constitution, giving jurisdiction in cases between citizens of different states; that the territories are not within the clause of the Constitution providing for the creation of a Supreme Court and such inferior courts as Congress may seem fit to establish; that where the Constitution has been once formally extended by Congress to territories, neither Congress nor the territorial legislature can enact laws inconsistent therewith. And then in paragraph 2, okay, if you notice here, it doesn't have paragraph 2, so this is paragraph 2, that territories are not states within the meaning of revised statutes 709, permitting writs of error from this courts in cases where the validity of the state statute is drawn in question, and so there's no writs of errors from territories. And this is paragraph 3, that the District of Columbia and the territories are states as that word is used in treaties with foreign powers with respect to the ownership and disposition and inheritance of property. And so That's why they say the states in the U.S. Code, because they're talking about the territories. And then they also convert all of the real states into territories because of the U.S. citizens that are in them, and we'll talk about that. Certiorari. This is original writ of the Court of Chancery, directed in the King's name to the judges or officers of inferior courts, commanding them to certify or return a record to the cause depending before them, to the end that the party may have more sure and speedy justice before the King, and such justices he shall assign determine the cause. And that's Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, volume 1. This is the current codes, okay, 28 U.S.C. Section 1254, Courts of Appeal, Certiorari, Certified Questions. Cases in the Courts of Appeal may be reviewed by the Supreme Court by the following methods: by writ of certiorari granted upon the petition of any party to any civil or criminal case before or after rendition of judgment or decree; by certification of any time by a court of appeals of any question of law in any civil or criminal case in which instructions are desired, and upon such certification the Supreme Court may give binding instructions or require the entire record to be sent up for decision of the entire matter in controversy. This is the Legal Information Institute again, and if you look there, there's the U.S. Code, and then the second tab is notes. These are the notes that we're going to talk about now, and so all of the stuff that's underlined we're going to go through right now. Chapter 231, the Judicial Code of 1911, is an act to codify, revise, and amend the laws relating to the judiciary, and that was the Judicial Code of 1911. And Section 239, that's by the way, the Judicial Code of 1911 doesn't say it on the first slide, but this one, it says it's located at 36 Stat 1157. We're talking 239, so the beginning of the Judicial Code is not at 1157. 1157 is the page. Anyways, in any case within its appellate jurisdiction as defined in Section 128, the Circuit Court of Appeals at any time may certify the Supreme Court of the United States any questions or propositions of law concerning which it desires the instruction of that court from its proper decision, and thereupon the Supreme Court may either give its instruction on the questions and propositions certified, which shall be binding upon the Circuit Courts of Appeals in such case, or it may require the whole record and cause to be sent up to it for its consideration, and thereupon shall decide the whole matter in controversy in the same manner as if it had been brought there for review by a writ of error or appeal. Section 240. In any case, civil or criminal, in which the judgment or decree of the Circuit Court of Appeals is made final by the provisions of this title, it shall be competent for the Supreme Court to require by certiorari or otherwise, upon the petition of any party thereto, any such case to be certified by the Supreme Court for its review and determination, with the same power and authority in the case as if had been carried by appeal or a writ of error to the Supreme Court. Okay, this is talking about writ of error in the Judicial Code. Okay. Of 1911. Section 241. In any case in which the judgment or decree of the Circuit Court of Appeals is not made final by the provisions of this, there shall be a right of appeal or a writ of error to the Supreme Court of the United States. And so, in summary, the writ of error appeals by right, the courts of equity and admiralty, and this is all found in the Judicial Code of 1911. State citizens and federal citizens are all found in the Judicial Code of 1911. And then the next site that they talk about there is 43 Stat 938, Chapter 229. If a writ of error be improvidently sought and allowed under the section in the case where the proper mode of invoking the review is by petition for certiorari, this alone shall not be ground for dismissal. Okay, so there's places where writ of errors are used and certioraries are used. And so that's basically what they're saying in this statute. 43 Stat 938. And then there's 45 Stat 54, be it enacted that the writ of error in cases civil and criminal is abolished. All relief which heretofore should be attained by writ of error should be attained by appeal. Okay, and Section 2 talks about that in all cases where an appeal may be taken as of right, it shall be taken by serving upon the adverse party his attorney of record, and by filing the office of the clerk with whom the order of appeal is appealed from is rendered. A written notice of the effect of the appellant appeals from the judgment or order from the specified part thereof, nor a petition of appeal allowance of an appeal shall be required Provided, however, that the review of judgments of state courts of last resort shall be petitioned for and allowed in the same form as now provided by law for writs of error to such courts. And that's 1928, 45 Stat 54, 48 Stat 926. An act to amend an act of Congress, an act to establish a court of appeals for the District of Columbia. Be it enacted that the court established as Act of February 9th, 1893, entitled An Act to Establish a Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia and for other purposes, shall hereafter be known as the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia. And that's all that one does. So, a writ of, this is Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, talking about writs of error, only applies upon matter of law arising on the face of the proceedings, so that no evidence is required to substantiate or support it, there being no method of reversing error in determination of facts, but by an attaint or new trial to correct the mistakes of the former verdict. So it has to be on the face of the proceedings for a writ of error. A writ of error, this is Tomlin's Law Dictionary too, a writ of error doth not lie upon a sentence in admiralty, but an appeal. Okay, so you think about it, that's quoting Koch in the Institutes. An admiralty is in a sentence, okay? Anytime you get sentenced, it's an admiralty proceeding, and they're saying that that you can't do a writ of error, you have to do an appeal. And so all appeals are an admiralty, okay? And a certiorari lies in all judicial proceedings in which a writ of error does not lie, and it is a consequence of all inferior jurisdictions erected by act. That's Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition. So anytime you are sentenced, it is admiralty. An appeal is something you do from an admiralty proceeding. And writ of error, a certiorari is for everything that a writ of error does not apply. Okay, so writ of error doesn't apply for admiralty, certiorari does. And so when the Congress went and changed it, they were basically converting all the courts over to admiralty. That's what the Congress whores were doing. Congress Satanists. A writ of error is only for a matter of law. Certiorari is for everything else. Certiorari is a result of the inferior jurisdiction created by statutes. Admiralty is an inferior jurisdiction. Civil law is an inferior jurisdiction. Law of the land is superior. And the Satanists in Congress are converting all the courts over to admiralty. Appeals under the current codes, you can appeal by certiorari only, no appeal as a matter of right. The Supreme Court can accept or reject cases. They've accepted every one of mine because I told them they had to. All federal courts are null and full admiralty, and this is a breach of trust and they know it. That's the Satanists again. They get you into one of their satanic contracts so they can assault you with their Roman cult court. They get to sell you some of their just us. They get to sit there and play stupid, and they get to collect a royalty for it. What a scam, eh? Filing fees, extortion, and excise tax, okay? And so that's all found in my do-it-yourself no filing fees video, which has already been published. So there's warfare is what it is. These Satanists are engaging in federal warfare, this secret warfare. Section 15, as used in this act, the term United States means government of the United States. The term currency of the United States means currency which is legal tender in the United States and includes United States notes and Federal Reserve notes. And so therefore, anytime you use Federal Reserve notes, you're saying that you're one of their government employees, okay? That's exactly what you're saying. Under the international law of warfare, all parties to a cause must appear by nom de guerre because the alien enemy cannot maintain an action during a war in his own name. Okay, so this is all talking about these Roman cult Satanists are cowards, and they're engaging in secret warfare, okay? And so a mixed war is one which is made on one side by public authority and by mere private persons, okay? So these Roman cult Satanists are engaging in perpetual secret warfare. Capitis diminutio, meaning the diminishing of status through the use of capitalization in Roman law, a diminishing or abridgment of personality, a loss or curtailment of man's status or aggregate of legal attributes and qualifications. Capitis diminutio maxima, through the use of capitalization, all block capital letters, the highest, most comprehensive loss of status. This occurred when a man's condition was changed from one of freedom to one of bondage when he became a slave. Okay, so these Satanists are using their warfare to make you a slave. It's all about slavery. It's all coming from the Roman cult, people. And this is the Trading with the Enemy Act. The President, if he shall find it compatible with, that's the magistrate, right? With the safety of the United States, with their criminal corporation, with the successful prosecution of the war. During the time of the war, the magistrate may, through any agency that he may designate, and under such rules and regulations he may prescribe by means of instructions, licenses, or otherwise, regulate, direct, compel, nullify, void, and prevent or prohibit or exercise any right, power, or privilege with respect to any property by any person, subject to the jurisdiction of their criminal corporation, and upon the terms directed by the magistrate, any such agency or person or such designated agency or person may perform any and all acts incident to the accomplishment or furtherance of these purposes. All persons, this is their 14th Amendment, their so-called 14th Amendment, all persons born or naturalized in the United States are subject to the jurisdiction of this, thereof, are citizens of their criminal corporation, okay? The Perpetual Secret Warfare, this is the act to terminate certain authorities with respect to national emergencies still in effect, and provide for orderly information and termination of future national emergencies, which was approved on September 14, 1976, and found at 90 Stat 1255. Being enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives and the United States of America and Congress assembled, that this act may be cited as the National Emergencies Act. But it says in Section 502, the provisions of this act shall not apply to the following provisions of the law, the powers and authorities converted thereby, and actions taken thereunder, and it doesn't apply to the Trading with the Enemy Act that we just talked about, okay? That's Section 5B of the Act of October 6, 1917. And that's this one right here, the Trading with the Enemy Act. We can't even begin to count the number of times judges, lawyers, and statesmen have said there isn't any common law anymore. It's been replaced by statutes. They would be more truthful if they said there isn't any common law anymore. It's been replaced by martial law. In the meantime, civil law is the form of law imposed in the Roman Empire, which was largely, if not wholly, governed by martial law rule. Equity has been always understood to follow the law, which he's talking about as common law or law of the land. To have superior equity is to turn things onto their head. This is exactly what happens when martial law is imposed. If equity is the law, then it follows its own course rather than following the common law, thereby destroying the common law and leaving what's called equity in its place. This is all taken from, these actually last several sites is taken from a book called Non-Ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge A.H. Ella to the Utah Supreme Court, and this is related to a case called Diet versus Turner. If a citizen acquires the same legal status as those protected by the amendment through the operation of some statutory law of Congress, then said citizen may be brought within the venue of the amendment as a statutory person. By this means, citizens' birth rates become of no effect and their rights are reduced to the inferior character of statutory civil rights, mere legislative privileges. So there's two classes of citizens, state citizens, federal citizens. You can be a state citizen without being a U.S. citizen. Do you know who you are? Watch the playlist. A U.S. citizen is not entitled to an Article 3 court. Remember that Downs versus Bidwell case that we're talking about, okay? A U.S. citizen is not entitled to an Article 3 court, but instead gets an Article 1 court with a plenary military dictatorship, okay? Remember the Passies in Congress and the U.S. Supreme Court whores. Military dictatorship jurisdiction, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, Constitution of the United States of America, as defined and reinstated in National Mutual Insurance Company of the District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company, which further states that citizens of the District of Columbia are not embraced by the judicial power under Article 3 of the Constitution of the United States of America. The same statement is held in Hepburn versus Dundas, located at 2 Cranch 445 in 1804. The Supreme Court, through Chief Justice Marshall, held that a citizen of the District of Columbia was not a citizen of a state. We therefore decline to overrule the opinion of Chief Justice Marshall. We hold that the District of Columbia is not a state within Article 3 of the Constitution. In other words, cases between citizens of the district and those of the states were not included in the catalog of controversies over which Congress could give jurisdiction to the federal courts by virtue of Article 3. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of Washington District of Columbia, and through their plenary power, military dictatorship, that's the Passies, people, nationally covers those citizens, even when in one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens wherever they go throughout the states of the Union. And that's National Mutual Insurance Company of the District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company. And this is where it's codified. 26 U.S.C. 7701, Section 3039, or it used to be 26 U.S.C. 7408. One's old and the other one's new. If any citizen or resident of the United States does not reside in and is not found in any United States judicial district, such citizen or resident shall be treated as residing in the District of Columbia for purpose of any provision of this title related to jurisdiction of the courts or enforcement of summons. And this is in their codes. Title 5, United States Code, Section 552 AA 2 and 13. Okay, 2 says the term individual means a citizen of the United States or alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence. 13 says the term federal personnel means officers, employees of the government of the United States, members of the uniformed services, including members of the reserve components, individuals entitled to receive immediate or deferred retirement benefits under any retirement program of the government of the United States, including survivor benefits. So they're talking about is federal personnel as anybody who has a social security number, okay? Do you have one? I know I don't. A social security number is a number for a Satanic trust. The term citizen, United States, is analogous to the term subject in the common law. This is the DC Code, Chapter 854, located at 31 Stat 1432, Section 1617 of this DC Code, an act to establish a code of law for the District of Columbia, the legal estate to be in the Satanic use. Okay, that's a Satanic trust. A citizen of the United States is a civilly dead entity operating as co-trustee and co-beneficiary of the public charitable trust, the construction Satanic Trust of U.S. Inc. under the 14th Amendment, which upholds the debt of the United States and USA and U.S. Inc., and that's located in a congressional record, July 13th, 1967, pages 641 through 646. And if anybody knows what the congressional record is and has ever read it, they'll know that that's a summary. Every taxpayer is a Satanic trust having sufficient interest in preventing the abuse of the trust to be recognized in the field of this court's prerogative jurisdiction. And that's in Bolins, 1912. And this is, again, the DC Code, 31 Stat 1189 at Section 2. Okay, 1189 is pretty close to the beginning. Matter of fact, it probably is the beginning, or it might be 1188. Anyways, that be it further enacted that interpretation and construction of said code, the following rules shall be observed, namely the third, that the person shall be held to apply to partnerships and corporations. So anyways, they're talking about fictitious entities. It might be correctly said that there's no such thing as a citizen of the United States. A citizen of any one of the states of the Union is held to be called a citizen of the United States, although technically and abstractly there is no such thing. So a U.S. citizen's a government employee and a Satanic trust. And this is Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, Volume 2, under the definition of mort main. Yet still it was found difficult to set bounds to ecclesiastical ingenuity, for when they were driven out of all their former holds, they devised a new method of conveyance by which the lands were granted not to themselves directly, but to nominal fiefs to the use of the religious houses, thus distinguishing between the possession and the use, and receiving the actual profits while a season of the land remained in the nominal fief. So the possession, the fief gets the possession, gets the use, who was held by the courts of equity, okay, then under the direction of the clergy. That's exactly what's going on today, to be bound in conscience to the account for his Satanic use for the rents and emoluments of the estate, okay? Well, that's property tax, people. So there, these clergy, these Baal priests that are running the courts, are that's how they're doing the property tax. And it is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of the uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing. And so the property tax is who is held by the courts of equity, then under the direction of the Baal priests, to be found in conscience to account for his Satanic use for the rents and emoluments of the estate. That's property tax. And it's the foundation of modern conveyancing, and it was all created by the Roman cult. That's where it's coming from. It's all created by the Roman cult. The whores in the federal so-called courts intend that these pigs assault people because it's so good for business. They're all cowards. They operate in gangs. That's these Roman cult Baal priests. The national whores in the Northern District of Texas, like McBride, Means, Cummings, Fitzwater, Fish. The national whores in the Fifth Circuit. The national whores in the state so-called courts, like Cosby and Lowe in Texas. See the federal judicial whores in Texas video. See the Fort Worth pigs on election time video. See the Texas DPS pigs on election time video. See the Walker County pigs on election time video. And there's lots more. These Roman cult Baal priests, they will never do an open declaration of war. They'd rather engage in secret war and populate their prisons and make their Roman cult handlers money. That's exactly what these Satanists are doing. Statutes have been passed causing the courts of admiralty, extending the courts of admiralty and vice admiralty far beyond their ancient limits for depriving us of a customable and inestimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the course of common law and instead thereof publish and order the use and exercise of the law martial. This is the causes and necessities of taking up arms, 1775. It's the same thing that they're doing today. This perpetual secret warfare. The Declaration of Independence. He's combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefit of trial by jury. That's in the Declaration of Independence. It's full of this kind of stuff. And this is George III, Chapter 12, 1778, 2 years after the Declaration of Independence. Whereas taxation by the Parliament of Great Britain for the purpose of raising a revenue in His Majesty's colonies, provinces, and plantations in North America has been found by experience to occasion great uneasiness and dishonors. Well, no joke, Batman, that from and after the passing of this act, the King and Parliament of Great Britain will not impose any duty, tax, or assessment whatever payable in any of the colonies, provinces, or plantations in North America or the West Indies, except only such duties that may be expedient to impose for the regulation of commerce. This is the definitive Treaty of Peace of 1783, signed September 30th, 1783. The arrows show you where you can find it if you want to go look it up. It's also located in the statutes at large. It having the highlighted portion here at the top, that highlighted it having pleased the divine providence to dispose the hearts of the most serene and most potent tyrant, King George III, by the grace of God, King of Great Britain, France, and Ireland, and it goes on, Arch-Treasurer and Prince-Elector of the Holy Roman Empire and of the United States of America. Okay? And so King George signed the definitive Treaty of Peace of 1783 as the King of England and France. King George signed the definitive Treaty of Peace as the Arch-Treasurer and Prince-Elector of the Holy Roman Empire and the United States of America. King George financed both sides of the War of Independence with Roman cult money. That's what that's saying. King George, with cooperation of the Roman cult Jesuits, deliberately created the circumstances for the War of Independence. That's exactly what the Satanists did, the tyrant, and it's the Roman cult that's causing it. This is Thompson versus Smith. When acting to enforce a statute and its subsequent amendments to the present date, the judge of municipal court is acting as an administrating officer and not in a judicial capacity. Courts administrating and enforcing statutes do not act judicially, but ministerially, but merely acts as an extension, as an agent of the involved agency, but only in a ministerial and not a discretionary capacity. They're bought and paid for. It's a kangaroo court. Roman cult Baal priests. That's exactly what's going on. It's the accepted rule, not only in state courts, but of the federal courts as well, that when a judge is enforcing administrative law, they're described as mere extensions of the administrative agency for superior reviewing purposes, as a clerk, as a bought and paid for clerk. Judges who become involved in enforcement of mere statutes, civil or criminal in nature, or otherwise act as mere clerks for the involved agency. Ministerial officers are incompetent to receive grants of judicial power from the legislature. Their acts in attempting to exercise such powers are necessarily nullities. So these bail priests in the Supreme Court, it's all a nullity. They don't have a shred of authority. They're not acting as judges. They're bail priests. It's a bill of attainder. It's a legislative act, no matter what their form, that apply either to named individuals or to easily ascertainable members of a group in such way as to inflict punishment on them without a judicial trial. It's a kangaroo court, so it's a bill of attainder. A bill of attainder is a special legislative act prescribing punishment without trial for a specific person or group. Bill of attainders are prohibited by the U.S. Constitution. They don't care about the nasty little things about the Constitution. They just want to trample on that as much as they can. These are Roman cult bail priests. A bill of pains and penalties is a legislative act, though similar to a bill of attainder, prescribes a punishment less severe than capital punishment. Well, when they're assaulting their sestike use, then that's effectively capital punishment. That's a dead thing. Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition. No one is bound to obey an unconstitutional law. No courts are bound to enforcement. An unconstitutional act is not law. It confers no rights. It imposes no duties. It affords no protection. It creates no office. It is in legal contemplation as inoperative as though it had never been passed. An unconstitutional law is void and is as no law. An offense created by it is not a crime. They don't care that it's not a crime. They want to assault you. They want to make money for their Roman cult handlers. These are Roman cult bail priests is what they are. It never became a law as much a nullity as if it had been an act or declaration of unauthorized assemblage of individuals. So these Roman cult satanic courts convert every case over to a contract issued by compelling the filing fee extortion. See the do-it-yourself no filing fee state or federal video. They convert the court case into a commercial transaction. By doing that, well, first of all, they convert every case over to a contract issued by either A, compelling the filing fee extortion, or B, fabricating evidence of their U.S. citizen slave. That's exactly what they do. And when they compel the filing fee extortion, it converts the court case to a commercial transaction. It pays for the errors and omissions insurance for the bail priests. It provides evidence that you're a U.S. citizen slave, and it converts the case into an admiralty issue. And when they fabricate evidence of their U.S. citizen slave, they do that by compelling impecuniosity paperwork, okay? And that goes back to watch the do-it-yourself no filing fee state or federal video. Once the case is over a contract issue, it goes to admiralty and they get to collect the royalty. That's why they're all retiring millionaires. They sit there and play stupid. They don't care what the outcome is. They don't have to protect your rights because corporations and sestike trusts don't have any rights. They get to play stupid. Civil law, Roman civil law are convertible phrases meaning the same system of jurisprudence, that rule of action which every particular nation, commonwealth, or city has established peculiarly for itself, more properly called municipal law, to distinguish from the law of nature and from international law. Okay, that's Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. So it's all Roman law. All forms and modes of proceedings in causes of inequity and admiralty and maritime jurisdiction shall be according to civil law. There must be uniform in maritime law, and principles of maritime law are applicable to commercial law. Therefore, there must be uniform in commercial law. Admiralty, the terms admiralty and maritime law are virtually synonymous. This is Title 18, United States Code, Section 7, Special Maritime and Territorial Jurisdiction of the United States. Define. The term Special Maritime Territorial Jurisdiction of the United States, as used in the title, includes any vessel belonging in whole or in part to the United States or as any citizen thereof, and any lands reserved or acquired for the use of the United States under the exclusive and concurrent jurisdiction thereof, or any place purchased or otherwise acquired by the United States or other needful building. And so, under the international law rule, if you're a U.S. citizen, that means anywhere that you're at, okay? International law rule, this is taken from Jurisdiction over federal areas within the states. Report of the Interdepartmental Committee for the Study of Jurisdiction over Federal Areas within the States. Part 2, a text of the law of the legislative jurisdiction submitted to the Attorney General and transmitted to the President June 1957. And this is page 158. This is the beginning of it. It goes to actually 165. So we'll see that the next slide. International law rule adopted for areas under federal legislative jurisdiction federalizes state civil law, including common law. The rule serves to federalize not only the statutory but the common law of the state. And then it goes on page 165, state and federal law venue discussed. The civil laws effective in an area of exclusive federal jurisdiction or federal law, notwithstanding their derivation from state law, and causes arising under such laws may be brought in or removed to federal district court under sections 24 or 28 of the former Judicial Code, which are now sections 1331 and 1441 of Title 28, giving jurisdiction to such courses of civil actions arising under the laws of the United States where the matter of controversy, whatever. The point being is that all state laws are federal laws if you're a U.S. citizen. And all these state laws only apply to U.S. citizens. So they're bail priests, and they're holding a kangaroo court. A kangaroo court is a term descriptive of a sham legal proceeding in which a person's rights are totally disregarded, in which the result is a foregone conclusion because of the bias of the court or of the tribunal. Even the Supreme Court bail priests are holding a kangaroo court. The martial law rule brings in the Roman civil law and displaces the law of the land. See the martial laws here video. Martial law is brought in by the bankruptcy, the bankrupt corporate governments video, the banksters 1, 2, and 3 videos, the de facto courts videos, and the unidroit videos. And the root of the problem, again, is the martial law rule, brings in Roman civil law. Martial law is brought in by the bankruptcy. The root of the problem is the United Nations. And under Roman civil law, status is everything. Under common law, status is nothing. Patrick Henry coined the phrase, "give me liberty or give me death," after he witnessed a man flogged to death for refusing to take a license. Everything in their so-called court does is a fraud. They spell your name in all block capital letters, a fraud. They spell your address in all block capital letters, a fraud. They use a zip code, another fraud. They present themselves as neutral and unbiased when in reality they're bought and paid for. All so-called judges, state or federal, are actually federal whores selling their just us. There's no such thing as an Article 3 court because they're all territorial. They are Roman Cult BAAL priests. They send out their U.S. citizen pigs to assault you, kidnap you, and falsely imprison you as a revenue officer under the Federal Tax Lien Act of 1966. They hold a show trial in their kangaroo court with a U.S. citizen prosecutor, a U.S. citizen clerk masquerading as a judge, and all their witnesses are U.S. citizens, and even their jurors are U.S. citizens. So where's the justice in that? And then they make merchandise of you and sell you into slavery. The judge works for the state, the prosecutor works for the state, the police or witness works for the state. The vast majority of the disputes that the police initiate on behalf of their employer are also adjudicated by their employer, where the plaintiff, the judge, the antagonist, the police, and the only witness is also the police, all represent the same party. Since there's no corpus delicti, no mens rea or acts reus can be produced, doesn't technically qualify to be heard according to its own laws. The state, therefore, is indistinguishable from a criminal cartel. Okay, they're nothing but a bunch of Roman Cult BAAL priests. This video is not intended to scare anyone or make them feel like all is lost, because it absolutely is not. We need to know what the problem is before we can know what a good solution is. And this, in my opinion, is what the solution is. And the Holy Bible, okay? What happened to all the Baal priests in the Bible? This is 1 Kings 18 and 40. And Elijah said unto them, take the prophets of Baal and let not one of them escape. And they took them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook Kishon and slew them there. They all need to be put to death. We need to get rid of this evil among us. The bottom line is never, ever, ever give up. It's never over until you say it's over. The end justifies the means is satanic. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, and put darkness for light and light for darkness. If a man be found stealing any of his brethren or the children of Israel, make merchandise of you or sell him, of him or sell him, then that thief shall die. Thou shalt put evil away from among you. That's what these Baal priests do every day. They do it on a routine basis. And through covetousness shall they with feigned words make merchandise of you, whose judgment now of a long time lingereth not, and damnation slumbereth not. I know thy works and tribulation. I know the blasphemy of them that say they are Jews or Christians or whatever, and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Ye are the father of the devil, the lusts of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. All fraud is lies, and it's Satanism. But the fearful and unbelieving and abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. So, if you're afraid of standing up for your rights, then I'm not sure that you're going to do too well on Judgment Day. By which he also went and preached to the spirits in prison. Okay, spirit prisons, hell. These people are all going to go to hell. It shall come to pass in that day, the Lord shall punish the host of the high ones that are on high, and the kings of the earth upon the earth, and they shall be gathered together as prisoners are gathered in the pit, shall be shut up in prison, and after many days shall they be visited. It behooves every man who values liberty of conscience for himself to resist invasions of it in the case of others, or their case might change of circumstances may become his own. If ye love wealth better than liberty, the tranquility of servitude better than the animating contest of freedom, go home from us in peace. We ask not your counsel or arms. Crouch down and lick the hands which feed you. May your chains set lightly upon you. May our posterity forget that you are ever our countrymen. And nobody could say it better than Samuel Adams. When shall it be said in any country of the world, my poor are happy, neither ignorance or distress is to be found among them, my jails are empty of prisoners, my streets of beggars, the aged are not in want, the tax is not oppressive, the rational world is my friend, because I am a friend of its happiness. When these things can be said, then may that country boast of its constitution and government. Well, we have nothing to boast about here. We have a bunch of Baal priests in the courts, Roman cult Satanists that have seized control of the courts. We have a bunch of Satanists that are running the government. You saw the Passio, the dictatorship, the Roman cult Satanists in Congress. We have taxes are oppressive. The jails are full of prisoners. The streets are full of beggars. We have nothing to be proud of here. But if the watchmen see the sword come and blow not the trumpet, and the people be not warned, and the sword come and take away any person from among them, he's taken away in his iniquity. But his blood will I require at the watchman's hands. This is my effort to make sure that I'm blameless on Judgment Day, and I hope you're blameless as well. But you can't just sit there and do nothing. You got to do something about it. Either you're part of the problem or you're part of the solution. You're now a watchman. Circulate this video far and wide. Other videos, I've got over 230 videos. Bankster Thieves 1, 2, and 3. Churchianity series about all the 501c3 tax-exempt organizations masquerading as churches. No such thing as a bank loan. Bar members 1, 2, and 3, do-it-yourself kangaroo courts, martial laws here, do-it-yourself traffic stop, do-it-yourself free mail, Azel pigs, 1, 2, 3, and 4, Texas DPS pigs, and others. Copies of these documents can be found in my private group at Yahoo called Administrating Your Public Servants. I have YouTube videos that are videos of private information shares that show these and other court citations that are available for a donation. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin, but as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept IOUs, Federal Reserve notes, PayPal guest checks, money orders. Send me an email for particulars. That last paragraph is for all the Satanist order follower revenue officers operating in their private capacity. Because you can take your privileges and benefits and put them up your rectal orifice. If you find this useful, then you need to pay it forward. If you don't know what pay it forward means, then watch the movie. Please send me your success stories so I can share them. My blog is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website, sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email is engineerwin@yahoo.com. My YouTube profile, Sovereign Living. My Facebook community page, I deleted it because of Facebook censorship and I want to hurt them. And so, and I'm in the process of deleting my private group at Facebook called Sovereignty International. Part of that process, the video's been published, is to unfriend everybody and ban everybody from your group. And that way, when you delete the group, it's gone. Otherwise, it'll never be gone. They'll keep it there and make money off it. My Yahoo private group is administering your public servants. My Google private group is administering your public servants. I appreciate you taking the time to watch my video. I hope you get something out of it. Please circulate it far and wide, and I hope you have a real nice day.